my name's James and welcome to this Astranti pre-scene analysis tuition video series where we're going to be breaking down the pre-scene document for the operational case study exam for the May and August 2020 sittings. Okay, so for the first time here we are dealing with CIMA's new 6-month examination windows. So the pre-scene that we have in front of us here will be relevant for each of the next 2 exam windows in May and August. Okay, and the focus for this video and for these 2 examination sittings is going to be the pre-scene company, which in this instance is a company called ChargeIT. So my name's James and I'm going to be guiding you through the OCS pre-scene analysis videos for this sitting. So to give you a bit of background on myself, I'm part of the content team here at Astranti, and for previous case study sittings I've been involved in the production of the industry analysis side of the OCS content. So I've written the industry analysis document for the past 6 or 7 sittings for Astranti, and I've also then recorded the industry analysis video to accompany this product. In terms of other case study work that I've been involved in at Astranti, I've got substantial experience in both writing and proofing the mocks and the model mock solutions that we produce here at Astranti. So I've been writing these and proofing these for several sittings now. And I've also been involved in this process at multiple different levels of the case study exam. So I've written or proofed mocks at OCS, MCS and SCS exam levels. Outside of my role in the case study team, I also am one of the tutors for the objective test exams. So I've done a range of work on the BA3 syllabus for our certificate materials, and I'm currently working on our F2 materials, and I've done a little bit of work on F1. So mostly financial reporting content that I've been working on. So in terms of what to expect in this video series, I'm just going to run you through some of the different techniques and some of the different things that we're going to be covering over the course of these videos. So the main purpose of these initial videos is just to go through the pre-scene document released by CIMA section by section. So this will usually be a few pages at a time per video. And we're then going to try, or I'm then going to try and break down and analyse this material for you in more detail. So of course this will involve things such as bringing out particularly important points that will be relevant to your exam, that are relevant in the context of the pre-scene. And in doing this I might use a range of different models, so things such as SWOT analysis, pestle analysis, to help me analyse the overall business's position and help bring out some of the key points in relation to it. I'm also going to analyse the business in relation to the wider industry around it. So we're going to look at some of the maybe interesting factors in the wider industry around the pre-scene company and look specifically at how these relate to particular aspects of the business's operations. Sort of touched on this point a little bit before, but I'm going to delve into some of the key business models that are relevant to the operational level of the CIMA qualification and look at these in relation to the pre-scene company's particular operations. So things such as Porter's value chain, for instance, may be particular models that I'll look to utilise over the course of these videos. I'm then going to look and try and relate the analysis I do as much as possible to some of the key exam issues that commonly come up, that are sort of reoccurring issues that often come up and are often tested by CIMA. And then part of this will be, as we go through, to just provide little hints and tips about the best way that you can undertake the exam to obviously aim to achieve the highest mark possible you can from your sitting. So after I've been through the sort of section by section analysis focusing specifically on the pre-scene, so this is the first 6 videos of our tuition video series, I will then move on and we have a video known as our strategic analysis video. And essentially in this video we use a model called the rational planning model. Don't worry if you haven't heard of this model yet, it is examinable at later stages of the CIMA qualification. You don't need to know about it for this particular exam, but it is just a useful model for us to employ as part of our sort of analysis of the company's strategy. And what we should be able to do, what we're aiming to do in this video, is to help you build up a really good idea of the company's strategy, where the company's strategy is going, so that when you get into the exam, you're really competent on these areas and you've got a good idea of the company's strategy and its strategic direction. The last video in our series is then our top 10 issues video. And this is quite a self-explanatory video, as the title suggests. Essentially it involves me going through the pre-scene and picking out the top 10 issues that I think will be relevant to the exam, are likely to come up and be tested in the exam, to allow you to focus on these in a little bit more depth. And we'll then look at some of the best ways to prepare for these specific topics, how they might be tested, things like that, to really prepare you for these key potential issues. In terms of how this video series will work and how we recommend that you go about using it, the first point, just to sort of re-emphasize, is that we will be going through the pre-scene like I suggested, section by section, with a few pages at a time covered by a set video. A key point to note here is that I'm conducting this page by page analysis assuming no prior knowledge as I progress. So we'll be tackling things head on essentially. We'll be going through it page by page, and I won't be making conclusions based on information at the end of the pre-scene, for instance. We'll be looking at it with fresh eyes each page as it comes. One thing we would advise is not just to rely on my analysis and my video. We would very much recommend that maybe before actually watching a video on a particular section, you read through this yourself and you make some notes and make your own little conclusions based on content. And it may be that you actually come up with some slightly different things to me. That's fair enough. That's all well and good. And that's all part of this revision process. And then after allowing yourself time to go through and read a section, you can play my take on the section, my review on the section, where I'll go through and pick out some of the key issues and things that I think you need to know about in the particular section of the pre-scene. And then after the 6 videos analysing the pre-scene section by section, as I said, we'll go through and have a full video on a sort of strategic analysis of the business, and then we'll go through and we'll pick out the top 10 issues which we feel are relevant for your exam. And finally, with regards just to some notes on the pre-scene itself, the aim of this pre-scene document from CIMA is to give context to the unseen material that you will come across in the exam. It's almost, if you think about it, as CIMA giving themselves some material to set up particular questions that they look to test in the exam. And if you think about the pre-scene in that regard, it sort of increases its use as a document, as it should give some signposts to the type of content that CIMA are looking to test in the various variants that they will have on exam day. We would very much recommend that you don't pre-write anything based on what we have talked about or what we have discussed in the pre-scene. You should be dealing with the tasks that you get in your exam on an ad hoc basis, as if you were actually an employee in the company. That is the point of these exams. So we really don't recommend that you go into a particular exam with a pre-written scenario in your head or anything like that. You need to be able to adapt and apply your knowledge to a very specific scenario that you won't know of before you go into the exam room. What this analysis can be used for, however, or which should be used for, is to provide you with a background level of knowledge that allows you to deal with the unseen issues that you come across in the exam. So hopefully our analysis gives you some useful advice, some useful sort of ideas that you can build on and utilize when you actually get into the exam, when you're dealing with these unseen issues. And so just to back that point up, this is the sort of thing that you can use on the day of the exam to give you a little sort of booster in terms of your knowledge. And we also would say that some of the recommendations we make in this document, if you want to go and use these as part of your analysis in your actual exam, then recommendations that are consistent with our analysis are absolutely fine to make, or based on a mixture of your analysis and our analysis. Okay, so with that little introduction out the way, let's get back into the pre-scene analysis. Okay, so the aim of this tuition video series is to break down and analyse in more detail the content within this pre-scene document. So each video in the series is going to focus on a few pages of the pre-scene document specifically, allowing us to break down this content and analyse it in a little bit more detail for you. And we're going to start today with a little bit of an introductory video. So if I just scroll down to the content page, what we're going to look at is firstly your job role and the role outline that you fulfill within ChargeIT as a business. So page 2 of the pre-scene. And we're then going to move on and we're going to look at the first part of section 2 of the pre-scene, so company information. We're going to look at page 3 here and get a little bit more information about the background of ChargeIT as an entity. Okay, so with that introduction out the way, let's scroll down to the first page of the pre-scene and have a look at the role, the job that you fulfill within ChargeIT as a business. The first thing straight away to say here is to reinforce the importance of this section of the pre-scene. Now, on the surface of things, the first time you viewed this pre-scene document, you might have had a quick glance over this section, as on the surface it seems quite small, quite inconsequential, a sort of introductory bit of blurb for you before you get into the meat of the pre-scene company itself. Okay, so if you have, as part of your initial revision, just flicked over this section, I would urge you to pause, rewind a little bit and look at the content within this section in a little bit more detail. Okay, so this section contains a range of key information, and understanding this is absolutely vital to your success in this case study exam. So a crucial part of your success at operational case study level is to realise that what's being tested in this exam is not just your knowledge of the relevant accounting theories from F1, from E1, from P1. What is also being tested is your ability to apply these theories to real-world scenarios and real-world examples. Okay, and the way in which this application is tested is by making you take on the role of an employee within the pre-scene company during the exam, i.e. having you respond to everyday scenarios that a real-life accountant would do within the workplace. And with this idea in mind, this section of the pre-scene should increase in importance in your mind. Essentially, by setting out the role that you are fulfilling as an employee within ChargeIT as a business, this section is essentially setting out the responsibilities that you will be expected to fulfill, and therefore the areas in which and about which you will be tested in the actual exam itself. Okay, and because this section is so crucial in setting out the areas, the ways in which you will be tested in your exam, it's worth us taking a few minutes to break down these few sentences in a little bit more detail, in line with what we know about the exam itself. Okay, so the first thing that we can spell out and break down in a bit more detail is that you are a finance officer for ChargeIT. Okay, but the question we have to ask here is, what role does a finance officer actually fulfill for a business like ChargeIT, and what position is an employee of this level within the company as a whole? Well, as you can see from the generic organisational structure on screen at the moment, as a finance officer, you are essentially at the lowest level, the lowest rung of the organisational hierarchy. Okay, so as a finance officer, you operate within the finance department of a business like ChargeIT, and you may be one of several different employees of the same job title, of the same level, operating at this lowest level of the organizational hierarchy. Okay, and then in terms of the hierarchy within this organization, you and any other finance officers that ChargeIT employs, will report directly to the company's finance manager, i.e. the next staff member up the hierarchical ladder, who in turn will then report to the company's finance director, responsible for overseeing the entirety of the company's financial operations, who in turn will then report to the managing director or CEO of the business as a whole. Okay, so you may be thinking this is all well and good, but what relevance does this have to me and my passing of this operational case study exam? Well, essentially understanding the place that a finance officer sits within an organizational hierarchy is crucial to understanding the level of tasks that you will face within this role in your exam. So as a finance officer operating at the lowest level of this organizational hierarchy, your focus is going to be on the operational side of things. So you're going to be dealing with operational information, and what this means is you're going to be producing things such as financial accounting information, management accounting information, and maybe other information, and then you'll likely be conducting a level of analysis on this information that you have produced or compiled. Now, the crucial thing to be aware of here is that the information that you produce, the analysis that you undertake, will be short-term in its focus. What essentially you will be doing is you'll be producing information, conducting analysis that will be used by those higher up the organization's food chain, so at strategic and tactical levels, to make longer term decisions about the development of the business and its strategy. Okay, so by understanding the role and the sort of tasks that a real-life finance officer would have to undertake in a business of this nature, essentially what we're doing is we're identifying the number or the type of tasks, that you'll be asked to undertake in this exam. Okay, so we've set out or addressed the level of responsibility that you will have to take on as a finance officer within this business. Now let's break down this statement on screen in a little bit more detail to specifically relate it back to the requirements you'll face in your exam and the sort of tasks you'll be asked to perform. Okay, so let's start with this first phrase here, compile information. What does this actually mean in the context of your exam? Okay, essentially, so in the context of your exam, the ability to compile information is your opportunity to demonstrate the accounting knowledge that you have accrued over the course of your CIMA studies so far. Okay, so here we're talking about, can you demonstrate your financial accounting knowledge from F1? Can you demonstrate your management accounting knowledge from P1? And can you demonstrate your wider business knowledge that you've acquired over the course of your E1 studies? Unfortunately, as we've touched on earlier, the key to success at operational case study level is not just regurgitating all of the OT knowledge that you have learned previously. What we are more looking for at operational level is an application of your existing technical knowledge to the real life scenarios that you'll come up against as a finance officer working for ChargeIT. Okay, so this is where the second part of this statement comes in, provide analysis. Okay, so in the actual exam itself, you'll be presented with a range of real-life scenarios. And what you're going to have to do is firstly demonstrate your accounting knowledge that's relevant to the particular scenario. But then secondly and crucially, you're going to have to apply this knowledge in a more practical sense as if you were a real-life employee. And if we think about this idea in terms of the wider context about what CIMA wants to achieve by putting you through exams of this nature, if you are an actual finance officer within an actual business, you would come across a range of scenarios on a day-to-day basis that would require you to apply your accounting knowledge. Now, these scenarios wouldn't just require you to regurgitate a particular piece of theory. What they would require you to do is recall that piece of theory and then apply it, act on it in relation to the specific scenario that you are dealing with. Okay, and the concept in these exams is exactly the same, just applied to a fictional scenario. Okay, moving on to the final part of this statement on screen, providing analysis for strategic decision making. Well, here we're just reinforcing some of the points we talked about earlier. As a finance officer, you're not going to be making key decisions in relation to a business's strategy. What instead you are going to be doing is conducting a level of lower level, shorter term analysis, which is then used by people who higher up the organizational food chain. So maybe the finance director, maybe the company's managing director, to make these strategic decisions about a business's future. So in the context of your exam, if you are asked to provide a recommendation or a justification for a decision as part of your answer, it's important to remember that this should have more of a short-term focus and shouldn't focus on the overall strategy and direction of a business. So now that we've clarified your role as a finance officer, let's look at the remainder of this role outline. So your main role within the business is to support Sophie Jacobs, who is ChargeIT's finance manager. And we can see how this fits very nicely with the organizational structure that we've set out underneath the paragraph here. And as a finance officer, your tasks include the preparation of the company's annual budget, the production of its monthly management accounts, and the provision of information to management as and when is required. So let's pause the video here and let's break down this last sentence in a little bit more detail. Okay, so if you think about these statements in relation to the syllabus content for the operational case study exam, we are dealing straight away here with a lot of management accounting content. And if we think about this in terms of the three syllabuses, we are of course here focusing straight away on the P1 syllabus. Okay, so unfortunately, unlike the 2015 syllabus, where we could confidently say that P1 questions would constitute 50% of your exam, we can't make such clear-cut predictions about the percentage of content that you'll face that will relate to this particular syllabus for the new 2019 exams. What we can do, however, is focus on the 6 key learning outcomes or core activities upon which you'll be tested in this exam, and use these as a basis to get more of a rough estimate about the amount of content that you will likely face from the different syllabuses. So these core activities come with weighting ranges attached to them. Okay, so core activity A, which is in relation to the preparation of costing information, will account for between 12 and 18% of your exam, while core activity B, which represents or which covers, the preparation of budgeting information, will represent between 17 and 25% of your exam. Okay, so what we have here are 2 core activities that could form up to 43% of the content in your exam, which focus exclusively on 2 of the key topics within the P1 syllabus in terms of budgeting and costing. What this then reinforces, of course, is the importance as part of your revision for this exam of brushing up on the key theoretical content that forms part of this P1 syllabus. Okay, so here we're talking about things like costing and budgeting, but also here we're talking about things like variance analysis. Okay. These topics form a key part of the P1 syllabus, and as we've just seen, form a dominant part of the weighting in terms of the content that you will likely be tested upon in your exam. So there is no excuses for not brushing up your knowledge on these subject areas, as we can guarantee that this knowledge will be tested in your exam. The second part of this sentence is also worth us taking a little bit of time to address. So the provision of information to management as required. I think what we're looking at here is essentially a little bit of a coverall basis statement by CIMA. CIMA obviously need to be able to test you across the breadth of their operational syllabuses. So here, this sentence is essentially providing them with the option to test you on your E1 based content, but also maybe some of the other aspects of the P1 syllabus that are not covered in the first half of this sentence. So when thinking back to our 6 key learning outcomes C is centered around the analysis of performance using financial and non-financial information, and this accounts for between 17 and 25% of your exam. While key learning outcome E centers around the preparation of information to support short-term decision making, and again this accounts for between 75 and 25% of your exam. Okay, so what we have here are a couple of learning outcomes that maybe aren't as specifically focused on central P1 theory as learning outcomes A and B. But what we do have here are more general core activities that allow CIMA to test you on a variety of different topics from both the P1 and the E1 syllabuses. Okay, so these two key learning outcomes reinforce once again the dominance that P1 has within this exam. So reinforces to you the importance of brushing up on theory throughout the breadth of this syllabus. Okay, but it also highlights the importance of brushing up on your theory from the E1 syllabus. While E1 may not be as explicitly referenced in these key learning outcomes as P1 and F1, what is evident is that it is subtly referenced throughout many of these different activities. And content from this syllabus may therefore form a dominant part of a question which accounts for up to 25% of your exam. And it's vital therefore that you don't overlook this content and have an awareness that it will feature in some manner within your exam. Okay, so finishing off this statement and a little bit more clearly, a little bit more explicitly, your role also involves assisting with the preparation of the financial statements of this company and also dealing with any queries that are raised with regards to financial reporting. Okay, so this statement here covers the last two of our core activities, okay? So core activity D relates to the application of relevant financial reporting standards, corporate governance, ethical and taxation principles. Okay, so we can quite clearly see this statement catered for in your role outline on screen here, and up to 18% of your exam could therefore be dealing with specific financial accounting queries ranging from anything from dealing with a specific accounting standard all the way through to a specific question on something like tax. The last of these 6 key learning outcomes then relates to another area of the F1 syllabus, which is in relation to the management of a company's working capital. So here we have a very specific key learning outcome on a very specific topic within the F1 syllabus. So you clearly have financial accounting responsibilities as part of your role, and this is combined with the explicit reference to working capital as its own core activity within the new CIMA syllabus. So what this clearly references to us is that working capital is a topic that will come up in some way, in some form as part of your exam. So another key area to be aware of and prepare for as part of your revision. Having watched this sample, would like to take the opportunity to draw your attention to a few of the other products that Astranti offer in relation to the case study exams. Now, the first of these is a study text, and this study text is available for all 3 of the CIMA case study levels. This study text contains comprehensive advice on how to pass the relevant level case study exam. This is advice ranging from tips on how the exams are actually marked and what you need to do to get these marks, all the way through to actually writing style and other key advice. These study texts are then supplemented by course videos, and again these course videos touch on some of the key ideas that you need to abide by, that you need to be aware of when looking to pass your case study exams. For individual sittings, we then produce pre-scene analysis videos. Now these are a range of videos where an expert in the office dissects the pre-scene in minute detail, bringing out some of the key points that you need to be aware of and really giving you a thorough understanding of the company for you to take into your exam. These pre-scene analysis videos are then supplemented by our industry analysis pack. Now you'll be aware of this if you just watched our sample video, but essentially what this pack contains is an analysis on the industry behind the fictional case study company. So we look at the industry itself, competitors, things like that, really dig into detail here so you don't have to do this as part of your revision. And then crucially, we compare this to the case study company. So what we have here is a video that you've just seen a sample of, but the main thing we produce in this regard is an industry analysis document. On top of these products, we then produce mock exams. So there'll be a range of different mock exams for each case study sitting. And these are designed to be as real life as possible, as close to the real life exam as possible. So we provide not only a range of mock questions, but we also provide comprehensive, detailed model solutions, if you like. So you can compare your answers with the model solutions produced by our experts in-house. On top of this, you can then also choose to have the solutions that you create to our mock exams marked and then personalized feedback provided by CIMA qualified accountants. Now, on top of all these options, we also offer a comprehensive masterclass. And what this masterclass is really good for is those sorts of people who maybe have decided to study for the exam at the last minute, or those of you who just want a sort of comprehensive overview of everything that the exam will cover. And so these are comprehensive recordings which you can either watch live or which you can watch as recordings, covering everything you need to know about the exam. And finally, we do have a lot of confidence in the quality of our material. So if you purchase our full course pack, and if you don't pass your exam, unfortunately, using this pack, then we will offer you a pass guarantee. Essentially, we will provide you with free materials for the next course sitting. So all that's left for me to say is, once again, thank you very much for watching this video and best of luck in your exam from everyone here at Astranti.